A peace plan for Gaza. For the plan to advance, Hamas must disarm. Instead,
tonight, terrifying images emerging from Gaza. Videos show Hamas-linked gunmen carrying out a public execution as they return to the streets.
Hamas on a rampage, executing Palestinians. Bloody crackdown, spreading terror. For freedom, not terror, Hamas must go.
When you walk into a Burlington, you're walking into low prices and amazing gifts. That's main character energy. Because at Burlington, the deals aren't the only thing bringing joy. Seriously, with these savings, why shop anywhere else this holiday? Burlington deals brands wow.
From Collierville Police Department. He will be describing Ms. Daniels on the scene. I would ask if my psychologist expert could remain in the courtroom to watch his testimony. She will be the second defense expert witness.
What's the state's position?
That's fine. Yes.
Okay, all right, yes.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Yes, ma'am.
Where are the exhibits?
Let me go get them.
So we have on jail, right? Okay.
Well,
I have type 1. I randomly got sick when I was 3. You can still do everything you do. It's just you have to work harder.
He's become a role model for people, and I'm gonna fight for him.
Are you ready for your winning moment? Find it at Wind Creek Casino. Hottest games, loosest spins, more ways to win. Wind Creek Casino. Find your winning moment.
You may be seated. Good morning. Good morning. Oh, y'all sound very refreshed. All right, we're ready to get that started. State you may call your next witness.
The state calls Special Agent Brock Sane.
Stand right here. Raise your right hand.
Do you swear affirm to tell the whole truth?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Have a seat, sir. If you could speak loudly so the jury can hear you like you're trying to reach the back of the room for me, please. Now proceed.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Could you state and spell your name for this record, please?
Brock Sane, B-R-O-C-K, last name Sane, S-A-I-N.
And Special Agent Sane, where are you employed?
I work for the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation.
And how long have you been with them?
I'm on my 16th year.
And what position do you currently hold?
I'm Special Agent in charge in the Administrative Services Division over the support unit.
Okay. Have you always been in that division?
No, I have not.
Where were you prior to that?
Prior to that, I was a Assistant Special Agent in charge in the Medicaid Fraud Control Division. Prior to that, I was Special Agent Investigator in the Medicaid Fraud Control Division. Before that, I worked in the crime lab here in Memphis as a Special Agent Forensic Scientist. I worked in the Drug Identification Unit and the Firearms and Tool Mark Identification Unit in the crime lab in Memphis.
Okay. So when you were in the crime lab, what did your job duties entail?
When I was in the Firearm and Tool Mark unit, that was from 2016 to 2020, roughly around that time, and I identified, examined firearms and ammunition components to determine whether or not those ammunition components were fired in a particular firearm and if the firearm was in operating condition.
So prior to the TBI, could you tell the jury a little bit about your educational background?
Yes, I have a Bachelor's of Science in Forensic Chemistry from the University of Mississippi. I graduated from there in 2009.
And have you ever testified about your findings in a firearms report?
Yes, I have.
How many times?
I don't know the exact number. In firearms, more than 10.
And have you ever been qualified as an expert witness as pertaining to firearm identification?
Yes, I have.
Do you know how many times?
All of those, 10 to 15 times.
And was that in Shelby County or other counties?
Other counties, federal court here in Memphis, and other counties across West Tennessee.
Your Honor, I would tender Special Agent Sane as an expert in firearms identification.
No objection.
All right.
We'll tender Special Agent Sane as an expert in firearms identification.
Agent Sane, I'm going to pass you a document. Do you know what that document is that I just passed you?
Yes, this is a copy of my lab report for firearms identification on a TBI lab case.
Okay. And was that case involving a homicide that involved Miss Latoshia Daniels?
Yes.
Okay. And you completed that firearms report?
Yes, I did.
Your Honor, if we could enter the firearms report into evidence as the next number exhibit.
No objection.
All right, we'll show Exhibit 20 as the firearms report.
Thank you. You can pass that back. Yes. Thank you. So, Agent Sane, what evidence did you receive to make that firearms report?
I received a Ruger EC9S 9mm Luger pistol, a magazine and some cartridges, and then I also received 7 9mm cartridge cases from a crime scene, and I received 6 bullets from the Shelby County from the medical examiner's office.
And who did you receive all of that from?
It was received from Chris Roberts from Collierville PD.
Okay. Do you remember the date that you received all of that?
April 10th of 2019.
Agent Stan, I'm going to pass you what has previously been marked as Exhibit 3. If you could open that up and tell us what you see.
It's a Ruger EC9S 9mm semi-automatic pistol.
And is that the same gun that you received from Detective Roberts?
Yes, it is.
Okay. And Agent Stan, I'm going to pass you what has already been previously identified as Exhibit 6. And what do you see?
Evidence received from at the TBI crime lab with my markings on it, my evidence tape, and it's the evidence examined and reflected in this report.
The leading method of suicide is by firearm, by a wide margin. I've had these conversations for years. It's really focused on prevention, and everyone can get behind that. Let's agree to prevent firearm death.
Vistaprint prints everything to get your brand in front of your fans, like t-shirts, water bottles, and totes, so everyone can gift it, work in it, and take it. Whether it's one of a kind or one for your whole team, if you need it, we print it with 20% off for new customers at Vistaprint.com.
Should we just talk about, in general, the firearms? And so in the laboratory, we take the firearm, if there's a firearm in question, take it in the laboratory to examine it. So I would do test fires. Take that firearm, and we have a tank in the laboratory full of water, and it's a stainless steel tank. Shoot that firearm into that tank and collect known bullets and cartridge cases that were fired in that gun. So those are my knowns. I know what those have. I look at those under a comparison microscope to look at the individual characteristics or the mechanical fingerprint of that firearm that were left and impressed and scratched upon those cartridge cases and bullets by that particular firearm. If I have evidence pieces such as these, bullets and cartridge cases, I take those and compare those under a comparison microscope to see if they have those same individual characteristics as the known test fires from that particular firearm. I look at those under the comparison microscope to determine if they were fired from that particular firearm or not.
And did you bring anything to demonstrate the test fires to the jury?
Yes, I did. May I use it in front of the jury? So, may I step down?
Yes.
So this is an aid to help you see what I'm talking about. This is a cartridge. So this is what the ammunition is loaded into, that semi-automatic pistol. It's loaded into that firearm. When the firing pin strikes the rear of this, the bullet, there's an immense pressure in the back. It pushes the bullet down the barrel of the firearm. So that bullet travels down the barrel of a firearm. Inside that barrel, there are raised areas, lands and grooves, and it looks like the stripes of a candy cane. So the point of that is to put a spiral, like a football, onto that bullet so it can go towards its intended target. So once that bullet is forced down that barrel, it's scratched by that metal, that hard steel inside that barrel, and the scratches are left upon that bullet. I examine those scratches on that bullet compare them to my known test fires. I do the same thing with the cartridge case. The pressure of that firing of the bullet down the barrel presses it against the rear part of the firearm, and when it's ejected, there's also other scratches that are left on the cartridge case. So I can look at a cartridge case and compare it to another cartridge case, or a bullet compared to another bullet. And that's how I can identify whether or not they have those same individual characteristics from that firearm that were placed there by the firing of that ammunition down the barrel.
Thank you for that. I do have a general question. So is it unusual to have a shell casing but not have a bullet?
No, it just depends on the situation. A cartridge case is ejected from a firearm and usually lands a few feet from where that firearm was. A bullet is fired down the barrel of a gun, and it can go until it comes into contact with something or until it runs out of speed or energy.
So specifically for this firearms report, what were your results?
So the results of this testing was I examined the firearm, and it was in normal operating condition and the safety features functioning. There was a cartridge and a magazine. There were cartridges and a magazine. And then once I test fired that firearm, the test fired cartridge cases and bullets from Exhibit 1A, the firearm, were microscopically examined in conjunction with the cartridge cases in Exhibit 2A. There were 7 cartridge cases and the 6 bullets in Exhibits 2B, 3A, 3B, 3C, 3D, and 3E. And based upon the comparative examination, sufficient agreement of those individual characteristics, all of those ammunition components had been fired in that firearm.
Okay. So all the casings or the bullets have been fired from that Ruger?
Yes.
If you could take a look at your report one more time, how many bullets came from the medical examiner, and were there any other bullets found in the scene?
I received 6 bullets. One of those was from the crime scene, and then the rest of those were from the medical examiner. So one of those says it was from crime scene.
No further questions, Ron?
Cross-examination.
Yes, Sean. Good morning, detective side? Not detective.
Agent side.
Agent side.
That's fine.
Special agent side.
Yes, sir.
I just have a few questions for you. So you were asked to, as you described, you were asked to examine these bullets, and this it came from this Luger, correct?
I was asked
Ruger,
to examine the firearm and compare it to those pieces of evidence, cartridge cases and bullets. Yes.
And that Ruger, that's a 9mm, correct?
That's correct.
And it's relatively small.
Yes, it is.
You examined a lot of different types of weapons, correct?
Yes.
And a 9mm, is that a fairly common weapon?
Yes, it's, I would say, one of the most common firearms that I examined.
A lot of law enforcement carry a 9mm weapon.
A lot of law enforcement does, yes.
And this particular one is relatively small in size, correct?
Yes.
And were the bullets that were fired from it small in size?
They're the same as all 9mm.
Okay. And you're not here today to offer to this jury that you knew what happened between Brodes Perry and my client Latoshia Daniels, are you?
No, I do not.
Your main thing that you're here to testify about today is that you examined those bullets, you examined the gun, correct?
Correct.
You tested the bullets, correct?
Yes.
And just to tell us that you can say that those bullets came from that gun.
That is correct.
And that's the extent of your testimony, and that's the extent of your involvement in this case?
That is.
No further questions?
We are ready.
No further questions, Your Honor.
All right, you may step down, sir. State you may call your next witness.
State restaurant.
Thank you. All right, I'm gonna excuse you at this time. The lawyer and I need to have some discussions, so I'm gonna show you excuse for a recess, okay? And again, we're still not ready to discuss the case.
Folks, in the fans, your chair, please.
Seated. Are there any motions at this time?
Yes, Your Honor, at this time, we would like to make a motion for judgment of acquittal. As to count 1, first-degree murder, even in a light most favorable to the prosecution at this point, we have testimony that Ms. Daniels, when she arrived in this location, was happy to see Ms. Miss Archie. They were in an enclosed apartment together with no threats. Mr. Brodes Perry came home together in an enclosed apartment, no threats. And it wasn't until something happened outside of the hearing of Tabatha that the shots were fired. After the shots were fired, officers have described Ms. Daniels as being non-responsive. When Ms. Perry testified, she testified that Ms. Daniels was yelling, "He broke my heart." And so I would submit that as to the count 1, that only the threshold for voluntary manslaughter has been met. As to count 2, criminal attempt, first-degree murder regarding Tabatha Perry, Archie. Your Honor, I would submit that the proof has shown that Ms. Perry testified that when she and Ms. Daniels were interacting with each other, she had to say, "You shot me." Ms. Daniels said, "No, I didn't." She said, "Yes, you shot me." And Ms. Daniels said, "I didn't mean to shoot you." And Ms. Perry even told Detective Roberts that she didn't think Ms. Daniels was trying to shoot her when that happened. She suffered an injury to the far side of her shoulder, which would not be a lethal injury. There was never any threats between Ms. Daniels and Ms. Perry. There was never any animus. For Ms. Perry, Your Honor, I would submit that reckless endangerment at best is what has been established as to Tabatha Perry, Archie, which would then eliminate count 3, the employing a firearm.
All right, State.
State is opposed to the motion for judgment of acquittal. The testimony is that the defendant bought a gun on the same date that she showed up unannounced at Mr. and Ms. Perry's house. She brought that gun inside the house, and for whatever reason, there's no testimony that anything unexpected or that should have caused an unreasonable response happened. They were walking out the door after talking for a while. She turned around and shot him. She discharged the gun at least 7 times, hit him at least 5 times. In the midst of that, she shot Tabatha Perry in the shoulder. I assume the court is going to charge the jury that if your intent is to kill another person and you accidentally hit another person, it doesn't matter that it's what you were trying to do. And if you just unintentionally hit another person, it would still be first-degree murder or criminal attempt first-degree murder. And when pulling goes along with that, I think the evidence is overwhelming, and the case should go to the jury.
Your Honor, as to counsel's argument regarding almost a transferred intent, that may have been the case, I believe, if Mr. Brodes Perry had not died. But then to say she killed Brodes Perry, and in trying to kill Brodes Perry, she shot Tabatha Perry, that becomes a reckless action. The intent is here. It can't be on both. So, Your Honor, I would submit that as to Tabatha Perry, that transferred intent should not apply. Secondly, nothing in the indictment indicates that the state was pursuing a theory of transferred intent here. It says that in an attempt to premeditatedly kill Tabatha Perry, that this happened. It doesn't say anything about a transferred intent in the attempt to kill Brodes Perry. That would be an attempted felony murder. That's not a crime in Tennessee, according to State v. Kimbrough. So, Your Honor, I would submit reckless endangerment is where we fall as to Ms. Perry.
I'm not aware of any law that requires us to indict the transferred intent in any specific way, and I would be interested to see if there's any that have been provided to the court. Again, the jury's going to be charged that if she were attempting to kill one person and hit another, and to say the fact that she was actually successful on her first attempt, on the attempt to kill Mr. Perry, that somehow negates the fact that she shot Miss Perry. I do not believe that's the law.
Your Honor, I can provide the court law that says if you're trying to shoot someone in self-defense and you shoot another person, that is a reckless act. You can't transfer the acting in self-defense against this person to the person that you accidentally shot. That becomes a reckless act, not that intention.
But we're not in self-defense, though, either.
And that's just an analogous situation. There is case law regarding, if you are trying to shoot one person and you don't succeed in shooting one person, but you shoot another person, then there's case law to support that. But when this other person also gets shot, then you end up in, I think, some double jeopardy issues with having the same intent covering 2 different crimes. I think the intent here is the allegation of premeditated. If there was an attempt to commit a premeditated act and someone else was injured, then that then becomes a reckless act.
All right, well, I have heard the arguments, and so the court's going to begin the analysis on the first-degree murder. The standard on a motion for judgment of acquittal is, after viewing the evidence in the light most favorable to the prosecution, any rational trial fact could find beyond a reasonable doubt that the defendant is guilty of the offense. And the court looks at the legal sufficiency of the evidence and not the weight of the evidence. So, first starting with first-degree murder. There are 3 elements for first-degree murder. 1, that the defendant unlawfully killed the alleged victim, Brodes Perry. The wife testified that she observed the defendant shoot Mr. Perry multiple times. Dr. Erica Curry testified that the defendant was killed by a homicide. So that element, there's enough evidence for that to go to the jury. And second, that the defendant acted intentionally. A person acts intentionally when it's the person's conscious objective or desire to cause the death of the alleged victim. I think from the evidence that's been presented, The defendants alleged to pull the gun out, shot the victim several times, and last that the killing was premeditated. The evidence that has come in at this point is that the defendant purchased the gun in Sherwood, Arkansas on April the 4th of 2019, drove 3 hours to Memphis, went to the victim's residence and shot multiple times. So looking at the evidence in the light most favorable.
When you walk into a Burlington, you're walking into low prices and amazing gifts. That's main character energy. Because at Burlington, the deals aren't the only thing bringing joy. Seriously, with these savings, why shop anywhere else this holiday? Burlington deals brands wow.
My 25% lawyer, my culture, my community. Last year around June, I had an accident. It got bad. I'm out of work, wanting more debt. So I knew I needed to get everything I could out of it. 25% is definitely better than everybody else. But it's also the community. Everything that they brought, it made me all the way comfortable. I have to guess. I didn't have to wonder. The settlement is life-changing. The security, I mean a lot to me. My 25% lawyer, my culture, my community.
Miss Perry, there's something that is called transfer intent. And so although she may not have had the intent to shoot Miss Perry, she had the intent to shoot Mr. Perry, and in the process of that, Miss Perry was shot. And so also in terms of serious bodily injury, Miss Perry Archer testified that her shoulder was injured. She said that she had pain in her shoulder. There was a bullet that was lodged in her shoulder that had to be removed. So the court finds that there's enough evidence for the criminal attempt first-degree murder to go forward to the jury, looking at the light most favorable to the state. And last, count 3, employing a firearm during the commission of a dangerous offense. There's no doubt, that based off the testimony at this point, the defendant employed a firearm. Miss Perry testified that she saw the defendant shoot the victim. There were bullets that were found inside of Mr. Perry, so employment of the firearm, that element has been that the defendant employed a firearm in the commission of the shooting of Miss Perry, the criminal attempt murder. The court found that there was enough evidence for criminal attempt murder, and there was a bullet that was found in Miss Perry's shoulder as well. And so in the commission of her, in the commission of the gun being employed, Miss Perry was shot. And last, that the defendant acted intentionally, knowingly, or recklessly. The defendant told Miss Perry to get out of the way, and she shot the gun. So the court finds that there's enough evidence for each count to proceed to the jury, looking at the evidence in the light most favorable to the state.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you. All right. Are we ready on Momon?
No, I'd like to reserve a moment until after we have our first 2 witnesses and Ms. Daniels has been able to hear all of the proof as it stands at that point for her to then make that decision.
Okay.
So if we could, after Dr. Bidding, take up the Momon hearing.
Okay.
And if I may just step out and make one quick phone call to make sure that we are good on logistics, we'll be ready to go.
All right. We'll take a recess.
Thank you, Your Honor.
A peace plan for Gaza. For the plan to advance, Hamas must disarm. Instead,
tonight, terrifying images emerging from Gaza. Videos show Hamas-linked gunmen carrying out a public execution as they return to the streets.
Hamas on a rampage, executing Palestinians. Bloody crackdown, spreading terror. For freedom, not terror, Hamas must go.
The Milwaukee Surge, it's ridiculously better.
The Milwaukee Surge is effortless. There really isn't any noise. Even if we go to a larger bolt, it's always quiet.
Well, I would say that the Surge has to be half as quiet as a traditional impact. If I'm working in an occupied space, it's important that they don't have to hear quite as much noise.
I have type 1. I randomly got sick when I was 3. You can still do everything you do. It's just you have to work harder.
He's become a role model for people, and I'm gonna fight for him.
Ready to get started again? Does the defense wish to put on any proof?
We do, Your Honor.
All right, you may call your first witness.
Your Honor, the first witness will be Officer Dunlap.
Stand here, faces us. Raise your right hand, please.
Do you swear affirm to tell the whole truth?
I do.
All right, you may have a seat, sir.
Would you please state and spell your name?
Ryan Dunlap, RYANDUNLAP.
Officer,
Officer, yes.
where are you currently employed?
Collierville Police Department.
Were you also employed there on April the 4th of 2019?
I was.
How long have you been with Collierville?
Since 2017.
Okay. I want to take you back to April the 4th of 2019. Do you remember that day?
I do.
Okay. Did you go to an apartment complex in Collierville?
I did.
And why did you go to that apartment complex?
We received a shots fired call.
When you went to the apartment complex, you went up, did you go up some stairs
I did.
and then towards an apartment?
Yes.
If I may, Your Honor, publish part of cumulative exhibit 12.
Yes.
Officer Dunlap is.
When you walk into a Burlington, you're walking into low prices and amazing gifts. That's main character energy. Because at Burlington, the deals aren't the only thing bringing joy. Seriously, with these savings, why shop anywhere else this holiday?
Burlington deals brands wow.
I may ask this family about what they eat. If he's turning playtime into screen time. I might even ask about changes to her body. If we feel comfortable asking these questions, shouldn't we also be asking, how do you store firearms in your home?
Firearm injuries are the leading cause of death for children and teens in the U.S. It's our responsibility to talk about firearm injury prevention, because questions about safety are questions about health.
Two were laying on the ground, and one was standing behind them, holding a gun.
Okay, and that was a man and a woman on the ground
Yes.
and a woman standing.
Yes.
And that was Latoshia Daniels that was standing.
Yes, ma'am.
When you saw Miss Daniels, she had a weapon in her hand?
She did.
Do you remember seeing that?
I do.
Did anyone give her any verbal commands about putting the gun down?
Yes.
Do you remember how long you were at that door?
I do not recall.
As people were giving her these verbal commands, do you recall what you saw Miss Daniels doing?
Just standing there, staring at us.
Did she seem responsive to you?
No.
Did you see her at any point raise the gun to herself?
Yes. After standing there for a minute, she knelt down and put the gun next to her head.
Did you see her, and I'm not asking you for any content of what anyone else said, but did you see her or hear her speaking softly to herself?
I'd have to refer to the reports, but I don't recall anything.
Would it help you to refer to your report?
It could.
Your Honor, may I approach the witness?
Yes.
That was just issues of force.
In my report, it states that She stated that she had ruined her life.
Well, and we're not, I don't want you to say what anybody said. Do you remember hearing her speaking to herself?
I can't recall.
Did you note that she was?
I did note that
yes,
she was speaking.
That she was speaking softly, and that she was not really communicating with y'all?
Correct.
And during this interaction, y'all were yelling at her, right?
Yes, sorry.
Thank you. Court reporter's taking everything down that we say.
Gotcha.
And as you were yelling at her, she was not really registering what you were yelling. Is that a fair assessment of what you saw?
I guess so.
Now, at some point, you said you saw her put the gun to her head.
Yes,
Do you remember seeing that?
I do.
When you saw that, could you see the gun?
I could.
Are you familiar with guns?
I am.
Do you know what it looks like when the slide is cocked back
I do.
and the gun is cleared?
Yes.
Did Miss Daniels' gun have the slide back, or did it look normal?
It looked like the slide was not blocked back.
Okay, so it looked like it was
It
in
looked normal. Yeah.
And if she had put the gun to her head and that slide was back, is that something that you would have noticed?
I would assume so.
At some point during this interaction, there was a decision made to use a less lethal round. Do you remember that?
I do.
Do you remember the first gun misfiring?
I do.
Do you remember another officer going down to get another weapon?
I do not remember which officer it was. Or
Do you remember that that happened?
I was focused on her. I wasn't really focused on what they were doing.
But at some point, Officer Jenkins deployed that less lethal round,
Yes.
and then Ms. Daniels was taken into custody.
Yes.
Prior to that point, you indicated that you saw Ms. Daniels put the gun to her own head.
Yes.
Did you ever see her point the gun again at the two people on the ground?
No.
At any point did Ms. Daniels point the gun at the officers?
No.
At any point did she threaten the officers?
No.
At that point in time, did y'all deem her to be a threat to herself?
Yes.
If I may, Your Honor, just a moment. That's all I have, Your Honor.
It's cross-examination. You may step in, sir. You may call your next witness.
Your Honor, the defense calls Dr. Amanda Bidding.
Can you step this way, ma'am?
Do you swear to affirm and tell the whole truth? I do. All right, you may have a seat, ma'am.
Watch your step.
Would you please state and spell your name?
My name is Dr. Amanda Bidding, A-M-A-N-D-A, B as in boy, I-T-T-I-N-G.
How are you employed?
I work full-time at Vanderbilt University Medical Center as an assistant professor of psychiatry and behavioral sciences.
Your Honor, may I pass forward a document? Do you recognize that?
Yes, this is my curriculum vitae.
Your Honor, I'd ask that that be made the next number exhibit. I believe that's 21.
Any objection?
No, ma'am.
I will show curriculum vitae marks exhibit 21.
Thank you, Your Honor. Thank you. Dr. Bidding, can you tell me a little bit about your professional career, starting with your education?
Yes. I obtained an undergraduate degree from Eastern Kentucky University in psychology. Then I went on to get my PhD in clinical psychology from Sam Houston State University, which is in Texas. As part of getting your PhD in clinical psychology, you have to do a year of clinical work under supervision. I did that year at Utah State Hospital in Provo, Utah, where I did forensic evaluations and also treatment.
Excuse me, you can speak up for me?
Yes, of course.
Okay. Like you're trying to reach the back of the room.
Okay.
All right.
After my time at Utah State Hospital, I had my PhD, and then I did another year of specialized training in forensic psychology for the state of Minnesota. After all of that, I was a licensed psychologist, and I worked for several years at Utah State Hospital doing forensic evaluations and participating in training. I also did some treatment, and then I came to Nashville and started working for Vanderbilt University Medical Center. Most of my work at Vanderbilt is doing forensic evaluations, but I also do treatment and then training with psychology trainees and psychiatry trainees.
Do you have any special licenses or certifications?
I am a licensed psychologist. I am certified by the state of Tennessee to do like court-ordered evaluations for people that are charged with a crime. And then I am also board certified in forensic psychology, which means that I went through a rigorous process where people who are experts in the field of forensic psychology reviewed my work, and I had to defend that work to them, and then they said, yes, we think that you are, you do high quality work, and so then I was board certified by the American Board of Professional Psychology.
Now, you indicated that in your practice now you have both forensic and clinical practices, right?
That's correct.
And in the past you have also engaged in clinical evaluations.
That's right.
What is the difference between a clinical evaluation and a forensic evaluation?
A clinical evaluation is typically where a psychologist sees someone to figure out if they have some sort of mental health diagnosis. We'll give treatment recommendations, whether that is for a school or for them to go seek treatment somewhere else. A forensic evaluation is when a psychologist evaluates somebody specific to a legal question. So whether the person is having mental health symptoms, that would be relevant to something in a legal case. That would be able to speak to their ability to get through their case, maybe their mental state at the time of whatever they're accused of doing. There are other things, but it would be related to something in the legal arena.
Does that forensic examination require distinct training above the, or aside from the clinical?
It doesn't require distinct training, however, it is highly recommended because it is different than the typical clinical work that most psychologists do.
And you have that forensic training?
I do.
Have you taught any classes, anything?
Yes, I've taught mostly through supervision. So I supervise clinical work, but I've supervised trainees doing forensic evaluations and then have taught never a full course. Actually, that's not true. I did teach a full course in forensic psychology, but then also do like short, hour to 3 hour long lectures sometimes on forensic psychology.
Which kind of brings me to my next question. Have you published peer review articles and have you been a presenter at continuing education seminars?
Yes.
Okay. Do you know approximately how many?
I've published, I think, around 7. I've been an author on about 7 peer-reviewed articles. Presented at a conference approximately 15 times over my career, and then been asked to present at other talks, I think approximately 5 to 10 times.
My 25% lawyer, my culture, my community. My accident was April 9th, 2024. I originally went with someone else, fired them, and that's when I found my 25% lawyer. Best decision I could have ever made. I knew where I was in each step. I was never blindsided. I was never lost. I'm blown away because, yes, he's charging less, but he really is doing more. If you fall on hard times, they got you. My 25% lawyer, my culture, my community.
So I purchased my first bedsheet blanket for myself, and all the animals stole it. They loved the comfort and how plushy it was, and so now it is their blanket. I know I can't give them forever, but if I can give them comfort and no pain, that's all that matters to me.
Declared expert in clinical and forensic psychology.
Thank you, Your Honor. Now, Dr. Bitting, whether you're testifying for the state or for the defense, does that matter as to what ultimate opinion you render?
It should not. One of the main principles of forensic psychology is to always try to do an objective assessment. So to give opinions and come to conclusions based on the information that I review versus what side hires me.
And why is that important?
For multiple reasons. I want to be helpful to the court, and if I come in and just give an opinion that the attorney wants me to give, that's probably not very helpful. But also it makes people not look very credible if they come in and their conclusions aren't based on the actual information that they had and they seem biased.
In this case, did you meet with Latoshia Daniels for an evaluation?
I did.
Now, I want to be clear, you are not coming before this jury to say that this is not guilty by reason of insanity, right?
That's right.
Can you tell the jury what not guilty by reason of insanity means?
Not guilty by reason of insanity is a plea someone can enter when they are asserting some sort of mental health defense. Typically, a defendant, if they plead not guilty by reason of insanity, they're trying to say, I was so mentally ill at the time that this happened that I didn't really understand what I was doing, or I didn't really appreciate that what I was doing was wrong.
Is the threshold, how high is the threshold for that degree of mental illness?
It is very rare for someone to be that severely mentally ill at the time of a crime to not really understand what they're doing or not be able to appreciate the wrongfulness of their actions. So it's a rare defense.
Would that actually require almost like a psychotic event?
Most of the time, it is because the person is having psychotic symptoms, yes.
And psychosis is different than regular mental health issues.
Psychosis is under the umbrella of mental health issues, but typically psychosis means that the person is out of touch with reality. They're not assessing the environment accurately anymore.
Another aspect of kind of the legal area of your field would be diminished capacity, right?
Right.
Now, because of limited information, were you able to make a determination on diminished capacity here?
I was not.
And that's because Ms. Daniels couldn't remember a part of what happened?
That's correct.
Now, I want to talk to you about the sources of information that you used in coming to the determinations that you did about Ms. Daniels, okay?
Okay.
Do you recall kind of generally what types of sources you used?
Yes, I was provided some information by Ms. Fuchs that included like discovery information in the case, so police reports, recordings of the 911 calls. I was also provided some journal entries from Ms. Daniels herself. I also interviewed Ms. Daniels. I spoke to a collateral contact, and I did some psychological testing with Ms. Daniels.
Did you also just watch Officer Dunlap testify?
I did.
Now, I want to talk to you about the evaluation part of it. Is it common in psychology to have the person that you are examining be your primary source of information?
In forensic psychology, we certainly don't want the defendant to be the primary source of information. Many times when I'm trying to assess someone's mental state, they're the person that's best able to tell me their mental state, but typically that needs to be corroborated. There needs to be some other data that supports what the defendant is saying, and typically that comes from things like police reports, observations of the defendant at the time of the offense, 911 recordings, body cam footage, things like that.
Getting ahead. Here, did you get self-reporting from Ms. Daniels?
Yes.
And then compare it to corroborating information?
Yes.
Did you find corroborating information?
Yes.
Okay. Now I want to kind of shift gears a little bit and talk to you about Ms. Daniels' background, okay?
Okay.
Did you discuss her childhood with her?
I did.
Did you find any particular trauma history in her childhood?
Yes.
What trauma history did you find in her childhood? You don't have to give a detail, but in general.
She detailed being physically abused by her mother during her childhood and emotionally abused by both her mother and her stepfather in some ways.
Do you recall her stepfather being abusive with her mother?
She also witnessed domestic violence between her stepfather and her mother.
Do you recall if there was any psychological impact from having to hide that from other people?
I don't know that she described psychological impact at the time, but she described how when she was a child, it was expected that she present like everything was okay. When they were in public, her stepfather was apparently a pastor. And so it was kind of the expectation that all of those things that were happening inside the home be kept secret, and that no one knew those things. And so she kind of had to like put on a happy face, for lack of a better term.
Do you still see the manifestation of that mentality currently?
That's certainly how she described herself functioning throughout the rest of her life, of kind of pushing down any sort of negative things that were happening in life and presenting herself like she had it all together.
Does Ms. Daniels have a family history of mental health? And I don't want you to get into details there, but just generally, does she have a family history?
Yes, she said she has a family history of mental illness and substance use problems on both her mom and her dad's side of the family.
I want to talk to you briefly about her educational history, okay?
Okay.
She has a master's as a licensed clinical social worker, right?
That's my understanding, yes.
Can someone who is that educated struggle with mental health?
Absolutely.
Can someone who is in the mental health field struggle with mental health?
Absolutely.
Would that be uncommon?
I don't know. I don't think I can answer that question with any real data. I certainly am aware of several people in the mental health field that have mental health problems themselves.
Now, I want to talk to you about Ms. Daniels' relationship and mental health history, okay?
Okay.
Based on your evaluation of her, did you find those two things kind of going hand in hand?
Yes.
Now, Ms. Daniels had been married at a young age.
That's correct.
Do you remember whether that resulted in a divorce?
It did.
Do you remember the psychological impact of that divorce on Ms. Daniels?
Yes.
Okay. And what was that?
She described that divorce kind of breaking her in a sense. Divorce was seen as sinful in her family. I think she kind of viewed it as a failure on her part. And she became so emotionally distraught at the ending of her marriage that is when she described attempting suicide.
Now, she did then get remarried, based on your information, right?
That's correct.
And did she describe any emotional trauma from that marriage?
Yes, she described that marriage as just generally unfulfilling. She felt neglected, ignored, unappreciated. She kind of described feeling like she had kind of pulled him into the marriage and that he was never really wanting to be with her. It was kind of how she felt during that marriage.
He was very emotionally distant with her?
That's what she described, yes.
And that was, she suffered some pretty severe depression symptoms during that marriage, right?
Toward the end of the marriage, they were married for about 8 years. Toward the end of the marriage, she described starting to have depressive symptoms, not wanting to go home, frequent crying, kind of losing some motivation, feeling hopeless.
Do you remember her describing sitting in the driveway and crying at the thought of having to go inside?
Yes.
So I want to talk to you then about her next step in counseling, okay?
Okay.
She told you that she and her husband, that she'd wanted her husband to go to counseling, he wouldn't.
That's right.
So she sought out spiritual counseling.
That's correct.
Did she tell you why she sought out spiritual counseling?
The way that she described it to me is that she wanted someone, I think, to kind of give her assurance that her relationship with God would not be affected if she got divorced again, if another marriage ended. And so she wanted to talk to somebody in her church about that.
And at the time she reached out for that counseling, was she endorsing depressive symptoms at that point?
She described to me having depressive symptoms at that time, yes.
Now, that's kind of her background, right?
Yes.
Okay, so from there, I want to shift to the psychological testing that you did, okay?
Okay.
What is the PAI?
The PAI is a common measure that's given by psychologists. It's a self-report measure. You fill it out yourself. And essentially it's questions that get at any sort of mental health symptoms that you're having at the time that you take the test, a history of mental health symptoms, and then it asks questions about.
Are you ready for your winning moment? Find it at Wind Creek Casino. Hottest games, loosest spins, more ways to win. Wind Creek Casino. Find your winning moment.
Rain in the bin isn't safe unless you know what's going on inside. OP Blue lets you track conditions and control fans from anywhere, anytime. Partner with Frontier Precision Ag for smarter storage, safer grain, and no guesswork.
Look more ill than they are, whether the person was being sort of defensive, where they're not endorsing anything, or if maybe they were confused by items. So that's the first part of the measure. And Ms. Daniels' results suggested that she was not endorsing things that most people do endorse. So not endorsing some negative aspects of herself that many people would be willing to endorse. So she was a little defensive. There was also some evidence that she might have been confused by some of the items, but not to the point where I couldn't interpret the other scales on the measure.
So the defensiveness that you were describing, is that also known as underreporting?
Yes.
What is underreporting?
Well, underreporting, just in general, is where somebody does not endorse having symptoms that they really are having. The scale on the PAI can't tell me exactly why she kind of elevated that scale. It could be due to several things. It could be due to a person knowing their symptoms and choosing not to report them, but it can also be due to somebody not having insight into their symptoms or their problems. So just not really knowing that they have these issues.
Did you make any specific findings about Ms. Daniels' personality?
Based on that measure, she was endorsing things. So even though she was a little defensive, she was endorsing a history of trauma, a history of some sort of traumatic event that was still bothering her. She also endorsed a history of kind of chaotic or stormy relationships. She endorsed kind of a lack of sense of self, kind of problems with identity and knowing who she is and where she wants to go in life. Those are the things that I'm remembering right now.
Did she, in your assessment of her, did she test as being someone with anger issues?
No, that did not come up at all on the measure, which that measure does assess for anger issues.
Did she actually assess in the opposite direction?
Thank you. Yes, she, her responses on that measure suggest that she's actually kind of the opposite. She's passive, meek, doesn't like hostility, doesn't like conflict, and tries to probably avoid conflict.
The validity scales that you were talking about, are those what are also known as a malingering test built into the test?
Yes. It's not a test designed to assess specifically for malingering, but it's related. It's essentially is this person's reporting of symptoms something that I think is reliable?
And what is malingering?
Malingering is when someone over-endorses symptoms, where they It's typically what happens. They endorse a lot of mental health symptoms for the purpose of some sort of secondary gain, like getting disability benefits or trying to get out of like a prosecution in a case. Malingering can also be like acting like you have a lack of knowledge about something. That you have like a lack of memory when your memory's really fine. So it's not just kind of an over-endorsement. It can also be like a lack of knowledge or a lack of symptoms.
Did you have concerns about her regarding malingering?
No.
Did you have any concerns with her regarding over-reporting?
No.
Despite her under-reporting, were you able to rely on the results that you found?
Yes.
Now I want to talk to you about the next test. What is the trauma symptom inventory?
It's a similar measure. You fill it out yourself. It's just specific to a history of trauma and assessment for trauma-related disorders like PTSD. So similarly, it has some validity scales and then some scales to tell me what sort of trauma symptoms she's endorsing, if she's endorsing any.
Okay, and what were your results?
There were no issues with the validity scales, no evidence that she was endorsing a lot of stuff or under-endorsing things. The only thing that she endorsed in terms of trauma-related symptoms was an avoidance of memories related to her trauma and avoidance of things that would remind her of her trauma.
What does that mean?
That means that she doesn't like to think about the things that have happened to her in the past, and she avoids thinking about them.
Is that a common personality type that does that? Kind of pushes things down?
It certainly can be. It's certainly common among trauma-related disorders, and there are some personality traits that are often common with a history of trauma where you would see the same thing.
So what was is the result that defensive avoidance, or is there a more specific result on that test?
No, the defensive that's the name of the scale that she elevated, is defensive avoidance. And what that means is that she's just avoiding those reminders and avoiding those memories.
So what was her specific results on that trauma inventory?
That was it. That was the only scale that she elevated.
Okay. Did it indicate evidence of trauma?
Yes.
Does it indicate particular trauma?
No, it doesn't give any information about the type of trauma the person has experienced.
And again, did you have any concerns about malingering during that assessment?
No.
Did you have any concerns about over-reporting during that assessment?
No.
Did you have any concerns about under-reporting during that assessment?
No.
Okay, so now I want to kind of shift gears to your evaluation regarding her mental state. Okay?
Okay.
You did review the discovery.
I did.
What stood out to you, generally speaking, in the discovery? Particularly regarding immediately after the offense.
So a lot of the discovery were police accounts. When police arrived to the scene, Miss Daniels is described as standing in the kitchen area, holding a gun, kind of talking to herself, not following commands from police to drop the gun, and kind of intermittently pointing the gun at herself.
Did you hear that consistent with Officer Dunlap's testimony?
Yes, and I believe I read his report.
Did you also review Tabatha Perry's statement?
Yes.
Did anything in her statement stand out to you regarding Ms. Daniels' mental state?
So Ms. Perry's statement essentially talked about how, this happened, and she remembers seeing Ms. Daniels kind of go into the kitchen. Another thing that stood out is that at some point, Ms. Perry apparently kind of tells her to leave, that the police are coming. And Ms. Daniels says, no, it doesn't matter. and doesn't leave, even though Miss Perry is telling her to get out of there, that she won't say anything to police, essentially.
Did anything strike you about the fact that she wasn't responsive with the officers?
It could mean that she was so distressed she wasn't able to pay attention to what was happening at the time. There are, I think, different things that it can mean. What it means at the most basic level is that she was not responding to the officers like most people would if officers have guns drawn at you and are telling you to put down a gun.
During your evaluation, were you also provided a suicide note?
Yes.
Is something like that important to your evaluation?
Yes. In this particular evaluation, it was corroboration of kind of her account to me that she was feeling suicidal around the time.
And you had some medical reports indicating depressed mood and suicidal ideations around this time?
Yes.
Now, Ms. Daniels did talk to you about her version of events, right?
Yes.
With your evaluation, did you find objective evidence that corroborated what Ms. Daniels was telling you?
Yes. So the things that I found that were corroborated were that she was feeling suicidal around the time, that she was depressed around the time, and some corroboration for the things that she talked about that were happening in the relationship with the victim.
Okay. And so did you find corroboration of, were you provided corroboration of the fact that she did purchase a gun that
Yes.
day?
Yes.
But that was after she had written the suicide note?
I don't recall the exact time. I would have to look back in the documents.
If the suicide note that you were provided was written on April 4th, 2019 at 3:14, that would be before April the 4th, 2019 at 4:37 p.m., right?
Yes.
Did you find that sequence of events to corroborate her timeline that she provided you?
Yes.
Did you see a Marco Polo video that corroborated her saying that she had a discussion with Brodes Perry earlier that night before going to the apartment?
Yes.
Did you see Tabatha Perry's statement that corroborated that Ms. Daniels went to the apartment complex?
Yes.
Did you see reports from police officers and the statement of Ms. Perry that kind of corroborated what Ms. Daniels was telling you about her mental state at the time?
Yes.
Now, I want to talk to you about the conclusions that you made in a clinical aspect regarding Ms. Daniels, okay?
Okay.
Did you make any diagnoses?
Dad just bought the new Govee permanent outdoor lights, and whoever gets home first controls them. Wait, who got there first? And it's Grandma for the win! Monday is Mom's Winter Wonderland. Tuesday, football night. Wednesday, I'm pretty in pink. Govee permanent outdoor lights, ready for every occasion. Join the fun. Buy Govee permanent outdoor lights today.
A peace plan for Gaza. For the plan to advance, Hamas must disarm. Instead,
tonight, terrifying images emerging from Gaza. Videos show Hamas-linked gunmen carrying out a public execution as they return to the streets.
Hamas on a rampage, executing Palestinians, bloody crackdown, spreading terror. For freedom, not terror, Hamas must go.
And did you have any other assessments that you made regarding her?
I also diagnosed her with an unspecified personality disorder with borderline and dependent traits. So personality disorders are where someone has personality traits that cause them problems. In the case of Ms. Daniels, Those traits are things like difficulty regulating negative emotions, so like difficulty kind of knowing what to do with negative emotions. Some of that history of suicide attempts, that's common with somebody with borderline personality traits. This lack of sense of self, or this difficulty with identity, is common in both borderline personality disorder and dependent personality disorder, where oftentimes the person kind of relies on other people to give them a sense of self and a sense of fulfillment. And I certainly saw that in her history of relationships, where she often kind of sought reassurance and did things that maybe she wouldn't do otherwise to kind of please the people that she was with. And that's common among somebody with dependent personality disorder.
And did she actually endorse that history with Brodes Perry, with her doing things that she was not comfortable doing?
Yes.
Can trauma affect your memory?
Yes, absolutely.
And because of Ms. Daniels' inability to remember during this traumatic event, you were unable to determine whether she would have met the criteria for diminished capacity.
Can you repeat that for me?
Absolutely. I'll try to do it more clearly. In order to make a determination about diminished capacity, she would have to be able to remember to give you specific details, right?
She would, or there would need to be other information that would tell me more about her thinking at the time, and I didn't have either. She didn't remember, and I didn't have anything that would give me that information otherwise.
And when we talk about specifically diminished capacity, that's at the moment of the act, right? Not later and not before,
That's
right
correct.
then?
Yes.
So because she could not remember, well, that immediate event, you were not able to make that assessment.
That's correct.
But a traumatic event can affect your ability to recall.
That's right.
That's all I have, Your Honor.
Cross-examination.
Thank you. Dr. Bidding?
Bidding.
Am I saying that correct? My name's Kevin McGalvin. I'm the prosecutor for the case. And I'll have a few questions for you. Are you the treating therapist for Ms. Daniels?
No.
So you're here as an expert witness hired by the court or somebody to come and testify as to what your findings were?
Yes, I met with Ms. Daniels just the one time for the purpose of this evaluation.
So your relationship with her began after this event, after the homicide?
Yes, well after.
Is it fair to say then that your opinion is based at least on large part from either what she self-reported to you or retrospective accounts of what happened?
Yes, that's fair.
How many times have you testified as an expert?
Roughly 15 times.
How many times for a defendant?
I don't have the exact number. More often for defense than prosecution.
You, I think testified you diagnosed the defendant with major depressive disorder.
That's correct.
Where does the criteria for that come from?
The criteria for that and any other mental disorder comes from something called the DSM. It's kind of the manual for mental health professionals that.
And that would be the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders. Is that correct?
That's right.
You found that she does not meet the criteria for post-traumatic stress disorder.
That's right.
Does the DSM or even your diagnosis state that a person suffering from depression is incapable of forming an intent to kill?
No.
In fact, there are millions of people who suffer from depression.
I don't know the exact number, but there are many people. It's a very common mental health disorder.
The vast majority of them never commit a violent act. Would you agree with that?
Yes.
Would you agree that depression itself is not the equivalent of a psychotic break?
That's right.
It is not a condition that renders a person legally incapable of thought or planning.
It's not one that commonly does. It can, but it would be unusual.
Unusual for depression to render a person incapable of thought or planning.
That's right.
A person that's depressed can work, pay bills, go on with life as a general rule. Would you agree with that?
I can't answer that with a yes or no, because to be diagnosed with a mental disorder, it has to impair your functioning. And so many times people with depression, that's the functioning that it impairs. It impairs their ability to go to work or to pay their bills or to eat, sleep.
You testified that she did not meet the criteria for insanity.
That's correct.
And so by that, your testimony is that she understood the wrongfulness of her act.
I did not find evidence that would suggest that she was unable to understand the wrongfulness of her act.
So you're aware, I think you testified that you purchased a firearm before driving to the victim's house?
That's correct.
Purchasing a firearm would require planning. Would you agree with that?
Yes.
It in fact requires that she go through like several steps. You've got to have an ID. There's all kind of things you have to do to purchase a firearm.
That's my understanding, yes.
And she was able to do all that.
Yes, I assume so.
You're aware that she drove over 2 hours after purchasing the firearms to the victim's residence, a residence that she had never been to before.
I'm aware that she drove from her home to Memphis. I think the information I had indicates that she drove to like a cigar lounge or something first before going to the
location.
Yes.
Commuted a substantial way after purchasing the firearm.
Yes.
And eventually ended up at the victim's house.
Correct.
Would you agree that that requires concentration, navigation, purposeful action?
Yes.
Did the information you had indicate that when she got to the residence that Mr. Perry was not there?
That's correct.
Did it also indicate that she had a conversation with Mrs. Perry while they were waiting for the defendant to show up?
That's correct.
That appeared to be a normal conversation that didn't raise alarms and Miss Perry necessarily. And
I don't recall anything in discovery that conversation raised any concerns for Miss Perry.
so those are not random, confused, or disorganized actions in my mind. Would you disagree with that?
I do not disagree with that.
Would you agree they were sequential and goal-oriented?
Yes.
In Tennessee, are you aware that premeditation doesn't really even have a time period? That it can happen like in a matter of seconds, and all that's required is reflection and judgment before the act is done?
I'm aware it does not require a specific time period. The phrasing in the statute is always a little confusing to me. It's something like sufficiently free from passion and excitement to be able to exercise reflection and judgment, something like that.
Right. So there's no specific time period. So there's no, we got to give this person a count to 10 to cool off. There's nothing like that under Tennessee law, right? It's just reflection and judgment.
That's my understanding. And the reflection and judgment, again, statute says something like it has to be sufficiently free from passion and excitement.
Does the fact that she realized that she needed a weapon and the fact that she went to purchase the weapon indicate judgment to you?
As a nurse, we're spending more time in direct patient care than any other specialty in the hospital. That is such an opportunity to have those conversations about firearm safety that can lead to real solutions for people. Let's agree to agree that gun violence is everyone's problem to solve.
My 25% lawyer, my culture, my community. My experience with my 25% lawyer was phenomenal. I had 2 accidents. From the intake person all the way down to the chiropractor, all the way down to the very end of my case, I never felt alone. Both of my cases have been settled. I was able to pay all my bills off, put money up for a house. I was able to put food on my table, and it's not something that I have to worry about for a very, very long time. My 25% lawyer, my culture, my community.
Say that a person suffering from depression can still make a reasoned decision to do things like that. So depression in itself would not keep a person from doing those things, from making those types of reasoned decisions.
Again, it's like the typical psychologist answer is that it depends. And I do think it depends. There are some people who can be depressed and it not affect their judgment or reasoning at all, and then other people where, again, that could be something, and research suggests that depression absolutely does affect someone's ability to make decisions.
But we've just said, or you just agreed with me, that she made a judgment and she took part in, there was a process of planning that went along with what her actions were that day.
I agree that her actions suggest she was able to plan and make judgments.
She admitted to you that she was heartbroken, upset, angry that the defendant, that Mr. Perry wanted to end the relationship with her.
She described to me feeling heartbroken and I forget the other words you used, I'm sorry.
Frustrated.
I don't recall her mentioning anger. It was a lot of kind of like internalizing, like I am heartbroken, I'm not enough, I'm a failure. I don't remember her talking about being angry.
Did she indicate to you she was frustrated that he would not tell his wife about the relationship they were having?
Yes, I believe she did tell me that she was frustrated about that.
Does frustration mean anger?
Absolutely, yes.
Did she talk to you about being under financial stress, at least in part because of money that she'd spent on going on trips with Mr. Perry?
Yes.
Did those feelings cause her to feel anger, frustration, regret?
Certainly regret. Again, I don't remember her talking much about feeling angry at the time.
So those are powerful emotions, right? Even if it was just frustration over the fact he wouldn't tell his wife, anger over the fact he wouldn't tell his wife, heartbreak over the fact that he wanted to end the relationship, and regret over the fact that she had spent money and was now in financial distress. Those are emotions, right?
Yes.
Strong, powerful emotions. Would you agree with that?
They certainly can be. Yeah, they can be intense emotions.
And those emotions are independent of your diagnosis of major depressive disorder. Would you agree with that?
The only emotion part of a diagnosis of major depression disorder is kind of the low mood or, sadness. is kind of the emotional part of depression and
So-
hopelessness.
Is that a yes? They're independent of that?
Well, I'm not sure. Emotions are not independent of it. So I think heartbroken you could put under sadness, and sadness is part of depression. Am I answering your question?
I think so.
Okay.
You testified a little bit about, and I don't want to go into details about it, but prior suicidal ideologies at least.
Correct.
Can you tell the jury a little bit about, there's a difference between a suicide attempt and a suicidal ideology, is that correct?
That's correct.
What's the difference?
The term psychologists often use is suicidal ideation. It just means thinking about suicide. It could even mean considering suicide. And of course, an attempt is when you actually try to kill yourself.
And you talked about she had past suicidal ideation.
Yes.
And then you also talked about a note that she wrote to some family members on this day that you saw.
That's correct.
Individuals suffering from suicidal ideation, do they often focus on their own suffering?
Yes.
I mean, that's kind of the reason, right?
Yes.
Do people often have those thoughts and express those thoughts at stressful times, like when a relationship that they don't want to end is ending?
My most honest answer I can give you is that it depends. There are some people that when they have suicidal ideation, sometimes that immediately leads to like a suicide attempt. There's more impulsivity there. And then for other people, it's more of what you're talking about, where really it's like a stressor comes up, it brings up these thoughts of wanting to die or just kind of wanting to end it all. And then that kind of wave goes away.
And can it also be a way to try to control the outcome or control the other person? Like, I don't want this relationship to end. If I make this known, maybe I can control that in some way.
In my experience, that's often a stereotype. And in reality, a lot of the time, the people that I work with, they say those things because they really want to die. Oftentimes there's ambiguity when somebody wants to die. They want to die, but then there's that part of them that hopes that somebody will give them a reason to live. But in my experience, if someone brings up suicide in the context of like a relationship ending, it's very rarely for the purpose of like trying to like manipulate the other person. And it's more of like a true kind of distress.
Are suicide thoughts generally inwardly directed, or I guess that kind of goes along? Is that kind of inwardly directed, or is it oftentimes outwardly directed?
Can you ask me, I think I know what you're asking, but can you ask me in a different
So
way?
if someone is actually thinking about committing suicide, is that something that they generally, that's inside them that they direct toward them and not outwardly toward somebody else?
Yes. So if somebody's having suicidal ideation, they are wanting to harm themselves. It's directed inward.
So if Miss Daniels was wanting to harm herself, why would she drive to Mr. Perry's house and shoot him and his wife?
Objection, lack of personal knowledge. That's going beyond the scope of the testimony.
She's the expert. Why would she?
gonna take a break. We'll come back at 1:30, but we're gonna convene for lunch. Still not ready to discuss the case. So I'm gonna show you excuse for lunch. We'll see you back at 1:30.
Court stand in recess until 1:30. Jury will continue to pass in the chair and follow me.
All right, we'll come back at 1:30.
Your Honor, before you take a recess, just for the record, I brought Dr. Bidding here today, so she does not have a car. So I know that I'm not allowed to speak to her now that her
Right.
testimony is going on. So if the court wants to tell her how to get lunch, or if you need to see me, like, with no words, handing her a bag of snacks, whatever we need to do, I just want to make sure that she has the opportunity to eat as well.
All right, yes, you can discuss your testimony with anyone, but there are some places to eat around here. There's
Okay.
a place, there's a Subway downstairs, and if you want to walk on the mall, there's some places, but discuss your testimony with anyone.
They told you these stories didn't exist. We're here to prove they do. Real footage, real crimes. No filter. For more true crime from the South, be sure to like and subscribe to our channel at Southern Sin. You can also support more episodes by becoming a member of the Southern Sin channel, where you'll get early, exclusive access to crimes that mainstream media won't show you. Tune in for all new episodes every True Crime Tuesday at 9 p.m.